light goes on right there. So I call the 2,445th meeting of the Milwaukee City Council to order. Say happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and on Comcast Cable Channel 30 within city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card. They're on the table over there for those in City Hall, or emailing ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it is time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list and chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. We ask that all Zoom participants who intend to speak label their Zoom username to show their first and last names for the record. Translation services are also available in multiple languages. Please see information on the slide for details. We do ask that people request translation services 48 hours before the meeting so that we can arrange for translation. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The City of Milwaukee respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya, etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. We have a series of announcements. Join a monthly volunteer work party at Elk Rock Island this Saturday, March 21st from 9:30 a.m. to noon. Volunteers will help to remove ivy and other invasive plants while picking up litter. Help shape policies that make homes and businesses healthier, cleaner, and greener at the next Clean Healthy Buildings Workshop on Thursday, March 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Ledding Library. This is the second of 3 sessions and will focus on how building upgrades can help us withstand climate extremes like wildfires, extreme heat, and extreme cold. Visit the city website to register to participate. Meet other local gardeners and share growing tips at the next seed swap at the Ledding Library on Monday, March 29th from noon to 1:30 p.m. OSU Master Gardeners and the Backyard Habitat Certification Program will be in attendance to answer your gardening questions. Bring organic, non-GMO seeds to share, but keep in mind that you don't have to bring seeds in order to participate. Join the North Clackamas Watersheds Council to help maintain trails and remove invasive species along Kellogg Creek on Saturday, April 4th from 9 a.m. to noon. Volunteers will be working in the Milwaukie Presbyterian Church Outdoor Sanctuary. Learn more and RSVP to volunteer on the North Clackamas Watershed Council's website. Visit Engage Milwaukee until May 1st to share your Milwaukee Ledding Library stories. We'd love to hear how the library has impacted you, whether it's a favorite program, a helpful resource, or a special moment. The city's new public works standards and drawings will be available for public review and comment until this Thursday, March 19th. The public works standards establish and provide specific technical direction for the design and construction of all streets and associated utility projects. For more information about each of these events, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukeeoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. And then I have a haiku, as I do every meeting, submitted by a community member, in this case by a staff member from the city of Milwaukee, Emma Fish, and she titled her poem Elk Rock. As the hunt concludes, talons skimming her river, the heron takes wing. I am always open to haiku submissions, so you can find me on the city's website and send me your haiku. I have enough for a couple, probably another month or so, but I will be needing haiku as we move into late spring and summer. All right, with that, I will. We will move on to recognizing the outstanding Milwaukie High School, Milwaukie Academy of the Arts student for this month. And I'll invite Principal Lewis Mayer to come forward with Levi.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Beatty, council members, good evening. It's always a pleasure to see you. I tell you, this is my favorite evening of each month. I get to show the excellence that takes place at Milwaukie High School, Milwaukie Academy of the Arts. And this young man next to me is testament to it, Mr. Levi Reich. So when I first saw him, that picture's emblematic of who he is with that camera. You do not see him without that camera. He's our extraordinary yearbook editor and take pictures. He's taking pictures all the time. Communications wise, just the other day he wrote a piece and he had me look over it. He is highly impressive, and I highly recommend if y'all look for someone in your communications department, media person, I have someone right here for you. So as you can see, his GPA is a 4.0. He's on track to graduate with honors diploma. His leadership and involvement, yearbook editor-in-chief for 2026, yearbook photo editor for 2025, instrumental music council member, National Honor Society member. He's in the A choir, wind ensemble, flute, piccolo, outdoor school student leader. Matter of fact, you need to hear him play. We have our band concert tomorrow. You all are invited. Please come by. Start begins at 7 p.m. Community and professional experience. He's pit orchestra musician for Milwaukie High School, Milwaukie Academy of the Arts for the past 3 years. He was in the productions of Little Shop of Horrors, The Prom, and Little Mermaid. As I said, he plays piccolo, the flute, and the alto flute too. He's a representative of Oregon student musicians through Oregon Ambassadors of Music. He toured and performed in over 5 countries in Central Europe. Need to hear more about that. Volunteer for North Clackamas Watershed, macroinvertebrate surveys, BioBlitz. He volunteered for Johnson Creek's Watershed, Dragonfly, Damselfly surveys, volunteer for Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District, invasive emerald ash borer beetle surveying, plus tracking, park restoration. Do a lot, young man. His academic pursuits, and his senior year, he's taken AP Government, AP Calculus, Japanese 2, excluding everything else that he's doing. And during his high school years, AP World History, AP US History, AP Biology, Chemistry 2, and Pre-Calculus. Mayor and council members, I'd like to introduce to you all this man of excellence next to me, Levi Reich, and I know this is being recorded, but he's one of my faves. All right. I introduce you to Levi.
Well, thank you. Levi, would you like to tell us, we'll kind of go around and I'll talk to you, but would you like to start by telling us what your plans are for after, are you a senior?
Yes.
You are a senior. So what are your plans for after graduation?
I plan on attending Oregon State University.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get a degree in biology and possibly have just work in entomology and research specifically. So that's my involvement with the watersheds and doing the dragonfly, damselfly surveys and doing the EAB stuff has really kind of helped me do that. And then also some exposure through my AP biology class at the high school.
Great. That's awesome. Well, I personally, I mean, I love all the science stuff because I'm a big supporter of our watershed councils, as I know all of us are. And they do some great work, and we hope to get rid of that dam someday. So hopefully you'll be here to come back and celebrate with us when we do that. But I especially love seeing a yearbook editor because I was a yearbook editor.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I know it's a ton of work. It's a lot of work to add on top of an already ambitious academic schedule and all the music and stuff too on your schedule. So kudos to you for that. I will open it up to other, why don't we start with Counselor Stavin Jordan?
Hi, Levi.
Hello.
I am excited because I already know you pretty well. But I didn't know a lot of the things that are on that slide. So you've been holding out. One of the things that I really love about you is that when you are taking pictures, you can see the way that you're looking at the world through that lens. It just exudes like curiosity and this really, there's just something really special about the way that you are framing the world through your camera. And I have really grown to respect and appreciate that about you. So my question is, what is the most interesting thing that you have photographed in the last year?
That's a hard one. I've at the school, I've done some sports photos. I took photos of the walkout that happened last month. I've, taken pictures around during Spirit Week and all that kind of stuff. But I think one of the more unique things that I've gotten able to see and take pictures of is Pocky the pigeon at the high school. The pigeon that was rescued and our librarian and media tech bring in every once in a while. And students are able to hold her and just say hi, and it's super fun.
That's really cool. I haven't had a chance to meet Pocky yet.
She's great.
So
She's great.
fingers crossed. I think it's really neat when I get a chance to see your photos, that I always notice something different, even though if I was at the same event or might have even been looking at the same thing, but you capture it in a really special way. And I know that you're going to take that with you through life. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Levi, this is impressive. It's like the list just go, it's crazy. Photographer, genius. Do you also fight crime at night or what? Like what?
You'll never know.
I mean, this is very impressive, and to speak on the photography, I mean, it's moments in time that tell a story, so I can appreciate that very much. A lot of people know that I took Japanese once. Failed. Actually, I got a D+, so I didn't really fail. Well, anyways, so I give you a lot of credit for that. And my only question is, what's your plan for once you leave Oregon State? Like, where do you, how are you going to maintain the photography? Are you going to try to live a dual life?
I would love to remain involved in the arts in some way. I know that when I go to OSU and while I'm majoring in sciences, I still want to be involved in the band.
Nice.
So I want to continue my involvement there. And then photography and just other types of forms of art are really important to me. So I still want to be involved with that. I've taken photos just of out in nature and that kind of stuff, which is really fun. So I do want to keep doing that, especially even after I graduate.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's important. Some of us lose it. I'm probably the least artistic person on this dais, but I wish I was. So keep that light bright, my friend.
I will. Thank you.
Counselor Chris Rabati, トイレに行ってもいいですか is the word of advice I can give you.
I can ask what your name is.
That's about all my Japanese skills entail. You can tell I sat in the first day of Japanese class. I really think, I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, is my prescription getting bad? Like, Principal Mayor, you're stuffing more and more onto these, or your students are just more and more impressive as they go on. This is so impressive, Levi. I really it is so heartening to me to see the folks coming out of our local high school and just the like wealth of activities that you've done in our community, the way that you're going to Central Europe, you're going all around the county, you're going all around the world and just getting this broader cosmopolitan sense of what it means to be a citizen here. And I think that is so important in this day and age. So it is just so heartening to see all the stuff that you're doing. I've got to pick on you. I see you're doing AP government, and I know that Mr. Alves would want you to speak to this a little bit. You've got 4 elected folks up here, and you've been learning about elected governance for the last year or so. If we could be doing one thing to be better elected officials, or just to serve in a way that you think would be impactful, what do you think that would look like?
I honestly think that you guys are doing a really good job already. I think even just being able to somehow get more voices from like the younger people around would be amazing. You know, I don't feel like a lot of people at our high school know about these meetings that happen. And I think it's a really great opportunity for people to come in and, you know, see what's happening and what the plans are and just be able to share their voice. And so maybe just more advertising about, you know, the opportunities to come in into the meetings.
It's very timely that you bring that up because we have not only these meetings, but we actually have slots for youth members on many of our boards and commissions. So our Parks Board, our Arts Board, our Library Board, and now I think we're going to add them to our Tree Board. So we are always looking for, there's a number of people who've been serving on those boards who are graduating this year. And so we need a new flush of high school students to serve on our boards and commissions. And so actually, Ms. Madigan helps us manage that, and she can connect with the principal to get that application out there to kids at the school. And Counselor Savagord has also done a lot to, you know, recruit youth to serve on our boards and commissions. So yes, we have some openings. We need you now. So maybe not the ones who are about ready to graduate, but the next class. Yeah. Yeah. We do have Counselor Massey on the line. I don't know if you'd like to chime in and chat with Levi. Counselor Massey?
Thank you. Hi, Levi. I'm zooming in remote. So I will first off start off with my wife taught AP biology and AP chemistry for many years, so she would call you one of her people. So that's an endorsement. And you've done great things in your leadership and your professional and community pursuits and your academic career. I know that you're doing great things now. You have a great future ahead of you. But I will tell you that I know that all of this reflects on you individually as a person, but typically we can't do all of those great things without a sort of a supporting cast. Is there someone or some group of people who have helped you along the way? And you know, if some of them are there in the city hall with you, would you like to introduce them to the city council?
Yeah, so my mom joined me here today in the back. But I have more than just one person in my supporting cast, truly. And I feel like not just my mom, but also my stepdad, my band directors that I've had at the school, both of them, as we got a new band director this year. The teachers that I had for chemistry and biology, just everyone who's like helped foster my growth, I feel like really deserves a place to be mentioned. Whether that's at home or just like outside of school, flute lessons, or just the classes that I take. I feel like everybody, like if I could mention every single name of somebody that's helped me, it would be very long and I wouldn't be able to say everything.
We won't start the music and cut you off like the Oscars.
At the Oscars.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned those folks because it's always great to have a cheering section that gets you through some rough spots and that kind of thing. And I want to wish you well at OSU and beyond.
Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to ask one, I will read the award you're getting, the certificate you're getting, but before I do that, I did want to ask about the Central Europe and the Oregon Ambassadors of Music. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So that was a trip that I did over the summer of 2024, so a couple years ago now. And that started by being nominated by a band director. And so Stephen Grindle was the band director at the time and had nominated me. And we were given music, so a long set list. It was about an hour long, or an hour and a half around. And we had to learn this music. And then we had some rehearsals at the OSU campus. We stayed in the dorms. We practiced in sectionals in the main group. And then we all collectively left on various planes and routes and layovers to end up in Italy in our first trip. And this was my first time traveling out of the country. And it was both fun and exhilarating and scary. It was a lot of new experiences and a lot of new people. But being able to experience the different places and the different cultures was really amazing, as well as just being able to play the music for these different places, because you know, in America we have, you know, middle schoolers starting their musical journeys. Like in Texas you have some insane bands and marching band groups that are just phenomenal, and there's other places as well. And so it's really amazing to be able to bring that somewhere and show, like, you know, you don't have to be like an adult, a professional to play music and be involved. And so it was a group of, I believe, 15 to 19-year-olds that all went. And I met a bunch of really amazing people there. And then one of my peers as well also went on that trip. And it was just an amazing experience to be able to personally, you know, be in those other countries and see what everything's like. Italy has some amazing gelato, but and the landscapes and the views, it was beautiful. But it was a good experience, especially just for myself and learning more things about how everyone in the world is different and how that went.
Yeah, awesome. I do feel, I lived overseas 3 different times, and starting as a college student, and I feel like every American should have to live overseas for a year. I think it's really important to see this country through other eyes. It's a very valuable thing to experience. So good on you for doing that trip. With that, can you put up I'll read our certificate. The City of Milwaukie is proud to recognize for outstanding student achievement in academics, civic engagement, and extracurricular activities at Milwaukie Academy of the Arts, Levi Reich. Let it be known to all that on this 17th day of March 2026, the City Council of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the county of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, recognized this student as an excellent example of the bright future of this community and nation. Thank you. Okay, community comments. This is the part of the agenda. First off, I don't have any yellow cards yet. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community comments on city business that is not on the agenda. Before we begin, is there any follow-up from the March 3rd comments, Mr. Brulio?
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to recognize Dave Aschenbrenner for saying thank you to us. I just want to reiterate that was fantastic for giving the Historic Society a grant. And then there was just 2 pieces of correspondence that came across in the email. And that's Chris Timmerman talking about private private videos and privacy in the backyard. And we're going to have a conversation on June 2nd to talk about residential privacy concerns. So just if he's out there, Mr. Timmerman will be talking about that issue in June. And the second one, which you've seen in this packet, is some of the comments from Austin about the mural, and no other comments.
Okay, great. So do we have any yellow cards? No,
I do not have any yellow comment cards, and we do not have anyone on Zoom.
we do not have anyone on Zoom other than Counselor Massey. Okay, then I will forego the rest of this script and we will move on to the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes minutes of the City Council February 10th, 2026 study session, February 17th, 2026 work session, and February 17th, 2026 regular session. A resolution acting as the local contract review board, reinstating an engineering services agreement with AKS Engineering and Forestry LLC for the Meek Street Stormwater Pipeline Project. A motion to reallocate council funds to support the North Clackamas School District Wichita Center Food Pantry Program. An Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission application for Waverly Green Apartments, 10357 Southeast Waverly Court, a new license. I will note that I would like to pull the minutes of the February 10th study session for an addition of an issue that I felt was left out of the minutes, and I think we've settled on some language, but just didn't have time to get corrected minutes in there. So with that, does any council member wish to remove any other consent agenda items? Oh, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as revised.
Oh, I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as revised. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. None heard. The consent agenda is approved. And we really have we have council reports that we will have eventually, but we really have only one agenda item tonight, which is the Middle Income Revolving Loan Program, a continuation of a discussion we started in November or December. And I believe it's going to be presented by the council president and Councilor Savengord.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a few opening remarks, some updates about the program. I know we were waiting to see a little bit about the rulemaking and the upcoming short session to see what's there. I've got some updates on that, some conversations that I've had with OHCS, but then we can turn it over to discussion and Councilor Stavengord. Just on the rulemaking and the House bill that have come out, to summarize it quickly, the rulemaking was pretty narrow in its scope, but it will have a real impact, or it addressed a concern that we heard from a lot of cities. It allows for jurisdictions to provide the funding for the property tax deferral on the increment through other means. So if you're doing a mural project in your TIF district, this wasn't previously allowed, but a lot of areas, Portland, I know Tigard had this concern, wanted to be able to do mural programs within their TIF district, a tax increment financing district. The way mural works, for those watching along, it's a deferral of the tax increment. So any addition you make to the property, that is deferred and used to pay back the terms of the loan. This says you can use other forms of revenue to do that. It doesn't just have to be a property tax deferral. That was the rulemaking. The House bill has a few different provisions. I think the ones that most apply to our context here, it allows for some flexibility in whether you loan or you grant the money, which then has implications for the way it's repaid and for the project. It requires an affordability covenant on all these projects, which in theory is going to help with the administration of this. It requires that in the actual deed of the land, you will write in certain affordability constraints for the length of the term. And then it allows jurisdictions to impose a 20% fee for noncompliance, which gives it real teeth. So as you're setting conditions, there's real consequences if those conditions aren't met. There are some other provisions, happy to talk to those. I think those were the large ones. Some other things that I think have come out from conversations with OHCS. I know a concern that was raised last time we talked about Merle was, what would it look like for us to be able to administrate a program like this? We're a small jurisdiction. We don't have our own housing department. There's a lot of really great affordable work that we're doing, but we don't have the staff capacity right now in our system to be able to administer a robust affordability program. The good thing is, talking to OHCS, I see a few different avenues that we could explore potentially. First is in the originating ordinance, jurisdictions have to develop some type of compliance plan. And I sent around to council, included hopefully in the record, some examples of what those originating ordinances have looked like. A lot of the ordinances pass some of these compliance obligations onto the developers themselves. So they have to be monitoring the status of the affordability requirements and report that information back to the city. OHCS has confirmed that we are able to structure our compliance mechanism in a way that we see fit. They're not going to approve or deny our compliance mechanism. They highlighted that there's a second check that we can establish as well. The originating ordinance is just kind of the starting gun, saying we will accept project applications, but it doesn't guarantee that we're going to do any projects. When you do apply for a project, one of the components that you're required to do is a compliance narrative. So a developer has to say, here's what we're going to do to ensure compliance on our property. And that again is a leverage point where the city can say, I don't believe your compliance narrative does enough, or frankly, it requires too much of us. We need to see it more on you. And so that compliance narrative, again, is something that OHCS said we could do. And the last thing I'm going to add, which I said before, there is now a 20% non-compliance fee that the city can levy onto developers who fail to comply with these affordability requirements. So it's not like we're shouting into the wind saying, please be affordable. We have real teeth in this program if we implement it to require affordability.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? 20% of what and at what trigger? I mean, obviously, the non-compliance is coming sometime after the places are occupied. And so what's the trigger and what's it 20% of?
20% of the loan amount is what you're able to levy on folks. And that would be for non-compliance of the agreement that you set forward. So that is, I think.
For any non-compliance. It's not just about the affordability component. It could be any okay.
Exactly. So it gives, I think, a challenge that cities had expressed that they were trying to solve in this bill is we can require some of these things in our agreements, but we'd like to see a little more of a reason for folks to have to follow our agreements that we've set forth. So that 20% fee that you could levy ends up being really significant and hopefully would encourage the type of behavior we'd like to see.
Okay.
Some last context before I wrap up here. In a meeting, I talked with Commissioner West a little bit about this program to address some of the concerns that we had about an IGA with the county assessor, what that might look like. And in that conversation, he expressed real interest in adopting the MERL program countywide. We're having a C4 conversation about it in May, but I think the county is going to move even quicker than that to adopt the MERL program, which bodes well if we wanted to adopt it locally, because it means their county assessor will already have the experience with the program or the understanding of what the program entails. The big caveat that I think was missing in our understanding before, if the county adopts a MERL ordinance or opts into the MERL program and allows projects to bring forward potential sites, it does not apply to jurisdiction or to projects within city limits. Cities have to adopt their own MERL ordinance to opt into the program. So even if Clackamas County does it, it doesn't help us necessarily or projects within Milwaukie, but it does, I think, make it easier to work with the county partners because they're already doing this at a countywide level. I just want to broaden out a little bit about why a program like this is important. We've heard a lot about one specific project and how this program was framed to us. I think there's a lot of, frankly, when I see MERL, I think less about that one project in the 44 units. I think a lot more about the affordable development that we're seeing across the city. We heard earlier today, we've seen, I think, 365 new affordable units this year. That's really impressive. And we all know how challenging it can be to build the funding stack for these models. I mean, 3 of us wrote a letter to our congressperson saying, please support Dev Northwest and their new affordable housing project. This is just one of the tools that we can now offer to affordable developers who want to operate in Milwaukie to say, if you're looking for funds, we are going to open every door. You can pursue it. We're not going to guarantee you can do this, but this is an avenue that you can explore. And as more and more jurisdictions across the state start to opt into us, I think that we're going to see more and more affordable developers saying, this is a program that we've seen elsewhere. Is this something that we can do here? And I think it's a good moment for Milwaukie to kind of step up and provide that same equity across. The thing that I think I would love for us to get to today is just a real point of clarity for direction for staff. Is this a program that we want to move towards adopting? Is this an ask that we would have to model our own originating ordinance, like the examples that we've seen? We know that on June 6th, the House bill that was passed goes into effect. And so that gives us some type of window of, at this point, changes will have been made to the program. Do we want to pass an originating ordinance to allow people to bring forward potential projects in Milwaukie? Or do we want to say that Merle is not a tool for Milwaukie? I think it's a fair conversation that we can have, but I do think clarity coming out of tonight will be really helpful, not just for the people trying to develop in Milwaukie, but also for our staff to be able to know clearly, okay, here's the direction that we want to head forward in. That's all I've got for you all. I can pass it to Councillor Stavenjord and happy to answer any questions about any of this.
Thank you. So just for those that might not be totally familiar with how the agenda items are set on council, one councillor can bring forth an item and then they need a second councillor to be able to sponsor that to get onto the agenda. So the partnership that we have in this conversation is that we both feel that it's important to at least discuss this amongst council, and that doesn't mean that that's not shared amongst our colleagues here. In fact, I think, everyone has expressed openness to talking about any type of affordability option that's out there. It's just that Will and I got to it first. So, so I just wanted to say that in case folks are wondering what the sponsorship is. It means that that we are in favor of the discussion of this, but not it doesn't mean that there would be necessarily, any affirmative action moving forward. We still just need to talk through what this looks like. I really appreciate your updates. And I think that, some of the things that have been weighing on my mind are the administrative burden for a city our size. But then to counter that, a city our size is also taking on issues of affordability in a way that a city 10 times our size, might be. So I think that there are a lot of good reasons to be discussing this. I think that there are also a lot of good reasons to be asking, what type of resources also exist at the state level for cities that are small and don't have the internal capacity to manage a program like this, what we might be able to access so that we can provide more affordability for our residents, and take some of that capacity and administrative burden off of the staff who already have pretty full schedules and portfolios. I love the idea that this creates middle income ownership. I am also, I think it's great. It's great that the county is also thinking about this favorably. Administratively, I think there is that kind of chicken and egg. Do we lead with a model that then they would build something off of? I think that there's potential. I hope that we get a chance to discuss this tonight. There's potential for different models to be implemented at a state or at a county level. Are you seeing what I'm saying? You look like you have questions in your eyebrows.
No, I'm not seeing what you're saying, but that could be on me. I think it is on me.
It's also, I think I'm not being clear. I think that I just want to make sure that if the county is thinking about this, that we keep that clear communication with them, so that however they're looking at implementing something and whatever that ordinance would look like at a county level, as it applies to unincorporated Clackamas County, that we would be using similar metrics or similar implementation standards, so that there's not confusion. I mean, there's already, people are already kind of confused if they live in urban unincorporated Clackamas County, but their address says Milwaukie. And so then it's a responsibility that I think we have as jurisdictions to make sure that the language and the process and everything is the same. for folks. So I do like that potential for regional alignment. And then lastly, I just want to say, thank you. There are a lot of people here that have come out. I'm excited to hear what you have to say, the things that you think that we should be thinking of as we move forward with this discussion. And appreciation to the staff for putting time into the analysis and giving us a little bit more to go off of as we move into this. So anyway, I'll stop talking now.
Well, okay, I'll kick off a few comments, which is, I was really excited to see the news that that Commissioner West is engaging on this. I have brought it up twice with the other mayors in Clackamas County and the chair of the county. I've brought it up at 2 of our meetings. I think two of our meetings last year, like late summer, early fall, and then again in December. And did not get a sense from other cities that they were really engaging on this. I have always felt like it makes more sense for the county to approach it holistically, like for the county to be on board before a city goes out there and does an ordinance. So I was really happy to hear that Commissioner West is engaging on this. I do think another question in there that that I would like to explore with the county. I mean, there's the tax assessor part, which we heard from this development team. They had talked to the tax assessor early on in the process. So, I mean, I think, I still have anytime we waive property taxes, I think that's not a great thing. And we're certainly we're in this program, we're able to waive everybody's. I mean, we're waiving taxes that go to the fire district, the school district, the community college, it doesn't feel very good to me in terms of partnership to just be waiving other entities' taxes. And I do wish that there was a fund, especially because what's being sought here is not a huge dollar figure. It's $1.5 million. I wish we had a fund to tap into to just do a loan, or somehow find other funding. I've put out some feelers on that over the last 6 months, have not found anything, although I did recently hear that Metro has a $5 million housing accelerator fund, and I've been trying to find out what the terms of that are, but I have not gotten an answer on that. But I do think the setting aside the we're waiving taxes part, I do think to pick up on what Councilor Stavanger said about the administrative burden on the staff, I think that the county might also be able to be helpful to us on that score if the Housing Authority, which does do that kind of work of verifying income eligibility, could maybe somehow be a partner, be a subcontractor, be somehow brought into that process and take something that, we don't have staff trained in doing. Turns out our acting city manager did do that in an earlier stage of his career. And he was very informative to talk through that with him about how much time it could take. Because when I saw these affordability covenants from the Portland, I thought, oh, well, that's there. And I mean, that seems like that would make it easier and that would make it more streamlined. And he basically said, oh, it could take you a couple hours and it could take you a week to verify one person's eligibility to compliance with that program. So there is an administrative burden there. I would love to have Commissioner West come chat with us. you know, and talk about these issues as he's digging more into it. I mean, it's great that you're going to discuss it at C4. I suspect I will bring it up again in the mayor's group as well. But it would probably be nice to have Commissioner West come here and talk to us about how he's thinking about it and whether we can find some ways to work together on some of this. That's kind of my thinking. He's got his goose up. And I just wanted to ask Nicole to flag for me if Counselor Massey is ever raising his hand, because I cannot see. Oh, I can see him. Oh, he is raising his hand.
I
think
love
he
that you're in
just
the
threw
dark.
his- Yeah, he is. He looks like he's in a scary movie. Okay, I will let the council president go first, and then I will call on Counselor Massey.
I was just gonna add one clarification. So with the waiving property taxes, you're still paying property taxes to all of those districts. The only thing that's waived is the increment itself. So your base rate that you were paying before, you would still continue to pay. It's kind of like an urban renewal district. You would pay that property taxes still to the city, to the school district, to the fire district. Only the increment is what's waived in this program.
That was not my understanding of reading the manual, but I'll have to go back and have another look.
I can go, I'll send you the section that it's in.
Okay. Counselor Massey.
Thank you. Well, yeah, this is interesting. I've picked up on a few more things. I guess, I have some comments and maybe some questions of others as well. I think that, the concerns originally were over risk and over resources. I like the idea that there might be some resource sharing, either with the county or with another like group of cities and that kind of thing, because just when I look at the total amount of MRL funds available, I see a big resource requirement to even administer, one of these loans. That's not very efficient to put in those kinds of resources to administer, a small amount of loans. And so some sort of grouping of the loans of several, jurisdictions with those resources might make sense. I'm intrigued by the council president's mention of the 20% imposition of a fine for noncompliance. And so my question, and you don't have to answer this immediately, either Will or whoever needs to answer it, is like, how long does that last? Because there's really some downstream monitoring of these loans that goes forward. I mean, it takes a long time to pay off a loan. And so, how long does that noncompliance clause last? Because you could have noncompliance, in year 9 or whatever. Is that developer going to still be around? I mean, I'm not sure how the accountability carries forward into the future. So that's a question. I'll hold that for now. But I will also mention that I understand everyone wants clarity and everyone wants to move out with decisions and everything like that. I would caution that we don't have to make a absolute decision right now. I think that there's still questions. I certainly haven't seen the new changes to the legislation that the council president mentioned and that kind of thing. I think that requires some study because we have some, already have heard, various opinions about what it really means, like for the taxes and that kind of thing. So I'm pleased that I'm hearing some more positive things, but I'm still cautious about this because this is just uncharted territory that I want to have some clarity on before we launch down this path. And it's a worthy path to follow, but there's just risk and resources remain the big issue. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kostrobani.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just want to echo Councilor Staven and just thank everyone who came for this specific topic. I really appreciate that because it's, you know, affordable housing, I think, has been on all of our minds for quite some time. And at some point, we've each pounded the table for it. And I do want to thank Pastor Bruns for meeting with me. We did meet together, had a great conversation. So thank you for that, sir. For all the members of the church who came and testified, I want to thank you. I really do appreciate your support for affordable housing in Milwaukee. That really makes my job in advocating for it a lot easier when you got people behind you who support it as well. I also want to thank Austin Turner, who I met with, who is a developer of the site. I met with him over the weekend. I know he's out of town right now, but I do want to say thank you for taking the time to sit down and meet with me on a Saturday and to go over all this and try to figure this out. And my point to saying a lot of that, aside from thanking everyone, is to say that I really have been trying my best to try to get to a yes for this. But the same concerns that I had prior are still existent. And that has to do with us being on the hook for the money still. So even if you charge the 20% fee, we still owe 1.5 million. And I'm just using that as an example, right? I'm not, because I don't want to, what I don't want to do is convolute this development with the program either, because they're two completely separate things, okay? And Austin and I were and the pastor as well, we know that they're separate things, and I want people to understand that they're separate things. We're just using it because it's the only, as an example, because it's the only program we can refer to right now. So even with that 20%, the city's still on the hook for the rest of it, right? I mean, you still, because it's already, the money's already been given out. So that to me is an issue. The other side of it is what Mayor Beatty had mentioned, the tax abatement. So right now we voted in, I can't remember if it was a year ago or longer, we voted to implement tax abatements for nonprofits that build affordable housing, right? And we met with the school district, we met with the fire district to make sure that was okay. So we have something that's already doing that. And similar to the mayor, because if you've followed some of our budget issues, you know, we're in about 4 years, we're gonna have another budget concern, right? So I don't know if holding off taxes for 10 years of, let's say, one of that project is gonna benefit our budget issues. You know, I attended the Linwood NDA meeting, and one of the residents made that comment that it's not just us that it's affecting the fire department, it's affecting the school district. It's not just a one-sided deal. And for us to unilaterally do that is a heavy hand, is pretty heavy-handed, because we all saw what happens when you do things like that. Not too long ago, the fire department came out for a levy. Not too long after that, the school came back for another levy. The community college came back to renew their bond or their levy. So you're seeing these things happening, and a lot of it is because if they're losing their tax revenue and they're not replacing it with something, it's a little bit easier on one side for us to say, yeah, it's not that big of a hit for Milwaukee, but it's affecting more than just Milwaukee. And those are some of the concerns I have, because we may not increase fees, for example, but if the district comes back out and says we need more money, because it's not just Milwaukee, but let's say the other jurisdictions are doing this as well, that adds up. And then there's a new bond, there's a new levy, there's another thing. So I'm not saying that I'm against this, but I think my concerns haven't been addressed. The other concern that I have, aside from the fact that we're on the hook, is the staffing. As of right now, I mean, from what I'm hearing from our staff, it's 2 full-time employees. So you got to think about the cost of 2 full-time employees, benefits, salary, all these things, and what that does for us, again, especially during some budget tightening that we're going through. So those are really my biggest concerns. The other thing I want to mention is that we had a state representative, Mark Gamba, former mayor of Milwaukee, who was here, and we were able to really pepper him with questions on everything the state. One of the things was about Merle. And Mark, who worked on the bill, Representative Gamba, who worked on the bill, even said himself, don't do it, on the record, as saying that it's just not a good, it's a bad deal for cities right now because it's so clunky. When it came out of the legislation, it was fine, but when it got to the Rules Committee, that's when things started getting topsy-turvy. Which leads to this, because we just had an evidence of the confusion right now with the taxes. You're saying one thing about the tax increment, the mayor's saying she didn't understand it that way. I've heard something different from everybody that I have talked to about this program has said something different. You know, I got one guy telling me the other person's lying or not telling the truth. I got them telling me that that's not correct. Then I got OHCS telling us, well, that's not correct. So there's a lot of confusion in this right now. And I think before you can even make a decision, you got to clarify what it is that this program is exactly doing. And what are all these levers? Because we are all getting told something different. And that's detrimental to the purpose of what we're doing, right? Because the more confusing it gets, the less likely you're going to want to do something like that. So I'm not saying that we end it now or nothing like that, but I'm saying that this hasn't gone through the correct process either of our city. We kind of circumvented the study session. Everything that you're asking for, Council President, is stuff that we should have done in a study session, then into a work session, and then a regular session. We've had 2 regular sessions about this, and both times we're trying to jam down either an ordinance or direction without any of us having A, clear understanding of the program, B, what exactly each of us want out of this program, and C, whether or not we have the capacity to do something like that. So it's not about, you know, I have probably been one of the more louder individuals on council for affordable housing, or affordability in general. We all care about it. I'm not taking that away from anybody, but I have been pretty vocal about that. And for me, it's not affordable housing at all costs, right? It's affordable housing strategically that's gonna make an impact, but not put the city in a burden that then results in outside entities having to increase the cost of living on Milwaukeeans, therefore resulting in unintended consequences like gentrification, right? So that's really my thing, is that if we're gonna do something for affordable housing, it's gotta make sense from A to Z. It can't just be A makes sense, B is a little confusing, C, D, E, and F, we're still not sure. All the way down to Z, they're gonna change some of these rules. So that's where I'm at. And I have tried to get to a yes, but I can't get to a yes based just simply on, I just don't think it's appropriate with the limited information we have. We can't make a sound, responsible decision as a governing body until we do have that information, until we do know what each of us want out of this program. We haven't even talked about what we want in this program. Nobody has. So to give staff direction on something that none of us have really discussed in public outside of 2 regular sessions, I think is a little premature. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on this. A lot of work that needs to be done. And I just don't know if another tax abatement is the best way to do it, or if us being on the hook for all this money is the right thing to do either, especially with budget concerns and what have you. So, you know, Representative Gamba mentioned, you know, 2027 is what they're looking at. I hope that doesn't take that long. They've already made some changes, but those changes do not address any of the concerns I think majority of us share.
I've got a long list of follow-ups. Councilor Massey, to your question about non-compliance and how long does that 20% window last? That non-compliance piece lasts the length of the project. The repayment period on the loan is 10 years. It can be set shorter. And so it would last over that 10-year period for non-compliance with payment. You in the project specifically, so one thing to clarify, you pass the originating ordinance, and then you have to separately approve a project. A project would be approved by a vote of city council. So we would be able to talk about what we specifically want on a project in that conversation. We can, as a part of that conversation, set different affordability terms. So it doesn't just have to be for those 10 years, you can extend it beyond just 10 years. And then that non-compliance piece would extend for the length of the affordability terms we set forward. So it's tied to the length of the program, and we have some control over that. Councilor Khosrowbadi, you've got a lot that you've laid out, and I've got a lot of responses. First, I'm gonna clarify one big thing. I think that we can, I've spent a lot of time looking into this, and there are some things that I think we absolutely can answer tonight. I can refer on page 23 of the section. I have the language that says right here, it's the tax increment. I've got another page on the project manual that talks a little bit about other components that you've raised. Like, I think some of these things we absolutely can do tonight. I can address that one too, because I did look up that one, and I'll speak to that right now. So on the hook for the money, what happens is you still have the property tax obligation that's passed on to whoever owns the property next. So if your property is foreclosed, if there's a lien on your property, that property tax obligation doesn't disappear into thin air. You still are required to pay your property taxes. And if there's a lien placed on the property, you're able to take the value of what that property is. So one thing that we could choose to do as a city is we could say, we don't want to 20% plus the amount of the lien that we'd be able to get. We don't want to offer a grant beyond that amount because we couldn't immediately recoup those costs. Let's say the development had already happened. We could have a lien on the property that's likely going to be worth more than $1.5 million in the example you said. But we, before we approve any project, can think through the steps that it would take to make sure that a lien would guarantee that we're able to recoup the full amount. And even still, even if we didn't structure the grant in that way, there still is an obligation to pay those property taxes from whatever entity owns the property. That financial obligation does not disappear if the property is sold, or if a bank owns the property, or if that's passed on. That property tax obligation exists. So someone still has to pay that fee over time. And that gives us some backbone of courage, I think, there. In terms of the abatements, one thing I want to clarify. So on page 24 of the program manual that was introduced in February, section 10.1.6, it talks about how the rural program tax exemption may not be combined with other property tax exemptions. So this was the big reason why TIF districts were ineligible, because those are technically a property tax exemption. What this is saying is, if we have a nonprofit tax exemption, this could not be layered on top of that. And so you're not seeing exemption on exemption on exemption with this program necessarily. Again, so page 23, the repayment amount program fee, talks about how this is calculated using the portion of the tax increment differential that is attributable to the eligible housing project property to which the fee relates. What this means is you are not necessarily paying property taxes, or the monthly fee that you're paying is not your property tax amount. It's the amount of the tax increment that's a direct result of the project that we do. And so it's the largest amount, but that amount wouldn't exist but for the project taking place.
So let me ask you that in that sense, because if let's say you have a piece of land, let's say the tax rate right now is $3,000 for an empty lot. Yeah. You build 44 units. Who pays the $3,000? You split it between 44 units, or everybody each is paying? How does that work? What's the mechanism there that divides the taxes? Because you say you're paying it on what's already existed. So if they're still paying on the taxes, how does that $3,000 original tax burden get spread out between everybody? Like, who pays that $3,000?
How it gets split
Because
amongst
these are
everyone.
ownership.
If you're doing a middle income land division, I'm not sure how it gets split, but you're still required to pay that 3,000 amount. Like that, you're only taxing, or you're only removing the increment.
Right.
And so
that's
whether
what I'm
that's
saying.
split
It
or
still
not,
doesn't help.
I don't think it.
Go ahead.
if we want to talk about the increment, I've got other.
I don't think-
This is why
yeah.
this needs to be
I
a
don't-
study session. Man.
Yeah, it does
It
probably
really
need
does,
to
and
be a study
I'm actually going to
session.
motion right now that we, unless somebody else has that, because this is the problem. There's so much like, well, this says this, well, that says that. We don't know, and I just think it's irresponsible to try to, like, can I ask you a question? Why are we so adamant about running this down the throat so quickly, so fast, without giving it the proper, like, none of us have the tools to make a sound decision right now. Every one of us has done it on our own accord. I went out and talked to all these people on my own. We've never sat down except for that one meeting in November, and everybody was still confused. Even OHCS was confused. And they just made some changes, which those changes are irrelevant to what are, it's just, I just think we're running this down our throats right now, and I'm trying to understand why. We cannot make a decision based on one individual's project. We can't.
Can we put a pin in the tax increment, come back to that, and I can
Sure,
respond to this?
sure.
Okay. I think, so, to go through a few of your points, and I'll start with this one. There's, despite the fact that we have work sessions, study sessions, regular sessions, I think we frequently will hear things at different times. We have a policy light code amendment change that's happening. We have a policy light code amendment that we're hearing for the first time in a regular session upcoming in April. that's our first time hearing it in a regular session. I think the reality of these is
This is massive.
these meetings happen.
It's an ordinance.
These meetings happen. I'm not advocating that we adopt an ordinance tonight,
Right, but you're directing staff to put one together. It's the same thing.
I mean, we would have a meeting first, have staff put together an ordinance, and staff bring that ordinance in a future meeting. That's similar to our work session works. But it was not my choice to schedule it as a regular session or a work session. I think this was, the direction that we gave in December was, let's put it back on an agenda. And
And we're still confused.
I don't want to fault the folks who put it on a regular session. That's just where
No,
they
no,
decided
I'm
to put
not,
it. And
but
I
that's
think
on us to make the call. We should have done that in the beginning, because all of us, look, December to now, we're all still confused. We can't even figure out the tax increment, right? So, you know,
I think, but this is what we can do tonight. Like, I think there's real value in us figuring these things out tonight and having clarity there. And we can
without
follow
all
up.
the information,
I think we have a lot of information.
I think we
But
don't.
let me
Everybody's
keep
got a
going
different
through.
answer.
Let's keep going through. Let's return to tax increment. Let me
Well,
talk through.
before,
Yeah.
okay, I will say, I've read the page you flagged. I think it's misleading to call it tax increment. They call it the tax on improvements. So, yes, it doesn't tax the land, whatever the value of the land is today, is the city and all those other districts would still get that property tax, whatever it is today. But the improvement, the tax on the improvement, when we talk about increment, we are usually talking about urban renewal districts where it's a small, steady increase over a period of, it's a 3% a year increase, basically, because that's what our that's what our tax laws say. This is the tax on the improvement, so the tax on the buildings that are built. It is a big chunk of tax. It is not a little increment like in a urban renewal zone. So I think it's wrong to call it a tax on the increment, but it is, you were right that it's not the tax on the underlying land that existed before the housing was built. It's still a big chunk of tax that we are waiving for everybody but the fire district. The fire district gets made whole. I will say to Councilor Kosher-Body's point, and it kind of merges with my point about inviting Commissioner West, I think it would be a good idea to put a study session all around this and just invite Commissioner West. We'll know more by, about whether other cities are interested and about what he's thinking, what his conversations at the county have been. That makes more sense to me than trying to drive towards some sort of staff direction tonight.
We don't even know how we're gonna do the compliance piece. We don't know how we have no clue. All we know is that this program exists, this is what it does, and we have an idea of how it works. Other than that, man, we got no.
Can I keep going through some of the responding to components?
Can we let Councilor Savinjord go, or?
I can be fast.
Yeah, let's let her go.
If you're all right with that, I'll be speedy. So whether or not we wanted this to be a regular session or a study session, I think that's kind of a moot point. We're here. And I think we should use the time as best as possible. So if that means putting together a list of questions that we have about this or clarifications that we need about this, then I think let's get that written down. Because I think that what I'm hearing from my colleagues is that we are interested in discussing this. But the way we're talking about it is just kind of like bashing our heads against each other. So I don't think that's productive, and I don't think that's why people are here today to, share their thoughts with us. I don't know the right mechanism at this point, so I'll ask you, is it appropriate that staff would be able, or you would be able to put together a list of things that we're most interested in exploring about this, or should?
You want us to take notes?
Well, I know there are notes.
We are.
So like
Major
for-
concerns?
I'll give you an example. The capacity to administrate this and to monitor this is something that gives me heartburn. I am interested in exploring a layered fee structure throughout the course of the covenant, I guess, which would allow kind of like a self-revolving, administrative pool. So, questions in your eyebrows again. No, control those eyebrows, please. An example of that would be, let's say that there is a real estate transaction fee that occurs when the house sells for the first time and any future times. And that real estate transaction fee comes back to the city or to whatever jurisdiction is administering the program and monitoring the program to sustain the administration and the monitoring. I feel like that would be really helpful to put in place structurally. If you're gonna have like a $1,000 or $2,000 fee, and that's, that's like spread out over a 30-year mortgage, that's a very small impact, arguably, to the person who's buying the house, but a really big impact for us if we're hearing from our staff that we're gonna have to think about bringing in additional team members to do the administration. Another thing so that's just an example of like one of the, everybody hates fees, but one of the fees that would probably be necessary if we were administering this. If we are thinking about the monitoring or the administration long-term over the life of these properties, I think that one of the things that I would need to hear more about is how we maintain the consistency of that monitoring. What that looks like, what other jurisdictions have done, what the state recommends. And the part that I think is really difficult about this conversation is that we have a project that is an example of how you could use this program. And then you have this concept that we're grappling with how to implement or if to implement within our jurisdiction. And those two things are at odds because, that's where the timeline comes from. Because you have interested parties who would utilize this program and they're asking us to help them utilize this program. But that's what is creating, I think, a lot of the tension in this discussion. Because we really have to realize we're talking about two different things. There's the program itself, and then there's an opportunity to utilize that program. So I just, I'm going to try to make sure that my comments and my questions are tied to one or the other, and I'll make that really clear so that as our team is taking notes on things to report back to council, that those questions are either assigned to, what impact would that have on the project or this current proposal or this developer versus how would we even think about putting a program like this into place in Milwaukee? I guess that really wasn't super quick, but I was trying.
Okay.
Yeah, you've let me narrow down what I was gonna say. First, to the rolling fees. So built into the MERL program, you get a 5% administrative fee each year to help cover the cost of some administration things. So let's imagine a scenario where someone's getting a $1.5 million grant. Good number, Councilor Khosrowshahi. You would be getting about $7,500 a year, which would not cover anywhere near employee, but if we're talking about an additional fee, it would be in addition to the $7,500.
Just a point of clarification on this.
Yeah.
You're talking about for the project. You're not talking about individual units, correct?
Yes, sorry, it's 5% of the loan amount is what you're able to get
And I
as a
think
sponsor
that's really
jurisdiction.
important because what I'm proposing is individual units as they transfer ownership for the first time and then subsequent sales.
Yeah, that's fair. The thing that I would say is I'd love to pass it to Joseph to talk a little bit. We've heard from OHCS that we have broad leeway to structure this compliance piece in a way that would not incur admin burden on us. And we have a compliance narrative that has to happen for any specific project that would further allow us to define exactly what that admin burden looks like, and try and skirt that as much as possible. Can you speak, Joseph, to a little bit, like what would, knowing that we have that leeway from OHCS, what would a structure of this program look like off the dome, to try and avoid some of these admin costs that we're hearing concerns about?
Yeah, thanks, Council President. And thank you for this discussion. It's not an easy one because I know there's the capacity issue, we're standing up a program. It's not, but we're also thinking about a project. I appreciate your comments, Councilor Staven Jordan. But as far as how I would try to structure this, actually, Tillamook County does an okay job trying to get the administrative burden off of the city and onto the developer. I am unconvinced at this point that there can actually be administrative removal of the city in any of this, because all of the covenants, as I'm reading it, and as I understand this program, are to the benefit of the city. So even if there is some kind of other entity that's doing the work, so to speak, as far as verification and the sales prices, every time there's a transaction, it's still on us. The benefit is still to us to make sure that the right people are getting the housing. I would say that putting that on the developer is helpful, but as a public bureaucrat, I would want to double and triple check that that's actually happening. I would feel much more comfortable if there was a partnership like a housing authority or as another entity that does that, or a nonprofit developer that actually does this work ongoing that we could work with. And I know, just so you all know, I know that I'm not alone in this at all. And all my concerns are shared with the dozen or so cities that we've also talked to, including Coos Bay, including Beaverton, Salem, Eugene, Happy Valley, McMinnville, and a number of others. So they're all trying to figure out this capacity issue, and they're also looking at could there be a centralized source, whether it's a housing authority or in some cases an economic development collaborative that could be like the clearinghouse for all the cities, because this is the linchpin for making this program work in the state. This is not an easy program to do. There's a reason why it's been sitting on the shelf and no one's been like, this is amazing. A lot of interest. This project would be awesome. It really would. But standing up a program and watching it collapse underneath our inability to actually run it well and to ensure that the right people get in there over 10, 15 years is something I do not feel confident in as an administrator, and just knowing our systems and knowing how stretched we are. So if that's helpful, I don't know, but that's my feedback at this point.
I do appreciate that, Joseph. The only thing I just wanted to add is, because we were talking earlier about the evictions and who pays and all that. But just so you're aware, evictions aren't quick. Evictions can be real long, lengthy legal proceedings. 2 years, 3 years, people stay in the house, not paying a mortgage, not paying any money towards taxes. So in that time that the eviction is being dealt with, who's paying the payments to the state if there's no monthly mortgage payment coming in? The family's still living in there, because there's a lot of issues where you don't just get kicked out after a 90-day notice, not if you own a home. It's a little different. There's protections involved, there's lawyers involved. Some, like I said, some evictions take a year, 2 years to
Well,
court.
it's really, yeah, when you own it, it's really a foreclosure, right? It's not an.
Yeah, that's what I mean, foreclosure,
yeah.
right? Because that's
Yeah.
where we're still on the hook from,
Yeah.
is the foreclosure. If it gets foreclosed on, we're still on the hook. The city's on the hook to repay that. You mentioned that the bank is gonna pay that, but during the time that they're going through the foreclosure, because those proceedings are not 90-day proceedings, they're longer, they can take years. I've been in mortgages for quite some time, not anymore, but who pays the mortgage? This is just a question. This is not a debate to say, no, this is why I don't want it. I'm just asking. If they're going through that and the homeowners are not paying their monthly mortgage payment, who pays the monthly payment to the state? Is that on us? Because the bank's not gonna pay it. So who pays that monthly mortgage payment? Because the minute you stop paying your mortgage, the state's not getting their money, right? So if somebody stops paying their mortgage and they're going through all this, not because they don't want to, but because of financial issues, whatever the case may be, who pays that in the meantime? And is there interest for any unpaid payments to the state? on the loan? Like, is there like a penalty, or I'm just more concerned about in that time frame who makes that payment? Because during an eviction, or excuse me, during a foreclosure, you're foreclosed on because you're not making your payment, right? So somebody has to pay that. I'm assuming that's going to be on us, because at the end of the day, we're the responsible party, right?
Councilor Cosbody, as the program stands, we would have a loan agreement with the state, and that's how we get the money. We grant that money to the developer. And so if anything like that occurs, yes, we are the ones, as we brought forward in the previous discussion, that's part of our exposure here. Part of it. There are some more tools though to basically protect us from that, but.
And I'd like to know what those tools are, because once it's foreclosed, you're not, or once it's going through those proceedings, like, where do we fall into that process? What is our mechanism to protect ourselves from the financial liability on that end? You know, and these are all questions, like, I'm hearing some people make comments out there. This isn't about like shutting it down. This is real stuff that we have to deal with. These are big decisions. You know, this is all part of it. So we would be irresponsible as your representatives if we just said, you know what, we'll just jam this through and we'll figure out the details later. You just don't, I mean, in my experience, whether it be in real life, dealing at work, or in the military, or whatever it is, that's not the way you don't just enter an issue and then hope for the best and figure out the details later. So I just want people to know that, because I'm hearing some people out there, it's like, we're just trying to figure this out. Nobody's trying to poo-poo on it or shut it down, but there's a lot of questions we have to this. It's not as simple as, you know, some people are making it sound. It's really not that simple.
The tools would be a lien though. That would be the
Right,
that
but
would be
then
the primary
the
tool.
lien doesn't get paid until the house gets sold either way.
True.
So we're on the hook for the loan. If we put a lien, is the state gonna say, okay, you have a lien, we'll wait? That's another question. That's another concern. So, I mean, these are the fine details. The overall program, like I said from the beginning, I'm all about it, but these finer details, when you really get down to the meat and potatoes of it, there's some concerns, and we all kind of have a different idea of how it works.
So should we follow the lead that Counselor George started and make a list? Should we be creating a list for staff for questions to come back with?
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Well, I mean, it's like cart before horse, right? If this were a study session, then we would be, like, just the mechanics of it, we would be, you know, kind of like getting briefed at the same level. We'd be able to ask questions specifically. We don't have, I mean, we're like, Joseph is doing a great job fielding, you know, some of this, but normally we would have, you know, some staff who have immersed themselves in it as well. We might actually have someone from the state, maybe Commissioner West would be here, and it'd be a much more robust
Tax
conversation.
assessor.
Yeah,
Tax
exactly.
assessor would be great.
I mean, it's not even so far-fetched that, like, we've talked with developers during study sessions too, you know, so to hear from that perspective, or some of the community partners that, you know, it's just, I don't know how to do that in this format, and it makes it awkward because we're bumping up against the rules that we have to follow in a regular session. And I think that's where, you know, Councilor Khosrowshahi is saying, you know, this really should have been a study session.
Yeah.
We're not saying that to like kick the can down the road. We're saying that because we actually have more tools available to us for discussion in that format.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that staff has been, I mean, this was framed as, especially at the last meeting, it was framed as, we need to do this ordinance. We need to do this ordinance. And I think stepping back from that and saying, and so there wasn't consensus on the council to say, we need to do this ordinance. Maybe there is consensus on the council to say, we want staff to devote some time to helping us flesh out these questions rather than all of us having disparate conversations and bringing in different, different information from different sources. Yeah, I guess that's what I'll say, because we started out so focused on doing the ordinance without making it a council, a council direction in terms of other things short of the ordinance, in terms of using some staff time to suss that out. So I guess that's my, council president.
Yeah, I guess I'm struggling here because my understanding was this was the meeting when we were going to unpack people's questions and come with a clear, like really dive into the questions that people have. And it feels like we're not utilizing this time for that. And I guess I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth and say things that I see all the goose flying. I don't mean to like offend, but this was our time to come back and respond to the questions in light of new information. And I don't see that happening now. And I can understand if you come here why this would be frustrating that we seem so unprepared for our conversation tonight, because this was our opportunity to answer these questions. It's not like this research couldn't happen. I feel confident in the research that I've done, and I feel confident in where I've landed. And I know that everyone's going to approach this differently. But if we are looking to move towards some sense of certainty, some like clear outcomes, a list of questions I think is a good start. But like, this is a moment when I ask ourselves, like, I think our process, I guess I'm just struggling because it feels like our process broke down. It feels like we should have made the list after last meeting and brought that to this meeting. But I'm just struggling with what was the point of this meeting if we're saying this meeting should never have happened.
Well, I do think that's part of the whole, conundrum around the way this came on the agenda. And then we never made it, we never had council consensus that we wanted staff to spend time on this. I know staff has spent a lot of time on this anyway, but, and in terms of coming with more info, I mean, we got some stuff from Austin Turner last Thursday or Friday. But you gave us a bunch of info today that we didn't have in advance. So, I mean, it's the info is trickling in from different quarters, and all of that is, anyway. I'm not sure who was up first. Counselor Stavengard.
Okay, so, so what I'm struggling with is that, we each have different pieces of information, and we are not each experts in this program or, arguably even this type of affordable housing. I'm not an expert in revolving loan programs, but I would love to hear from someone who has more expertise than I. And in the absence of having those individuals or community partners or staff here to be part of the discussion, then we rely on the 5 of us to answer these questions. And so the reason that I added my name to have this discussion is because I really do believe that this warrants a discussion. But I don't feel comfortable moving forward with an ordinance. I don't think that we're at that point. And what was proposed in the last meeting was actually just a draft document that another city was moving forward, and that's not how ordinances are made. So there are some mechanics that are being missed. And so that's on the implementation side of things, but there's a really neat project that could benefit from this, and we're wasting time side of this, then we're feeling the pressure of this urgency. And yes, it does feel really uncomfortable and awkward to have this conversation and have all these people show up just only to say, you know what we really need is another meeting to talk about this. That doesn't feel like we're doing a service to our community. So I'm struggling with these two worlds because short of the research that we have each individually done, there's not much more we can do in this space other than debate each other. And is that the forward movement that we want to see out of this? No, that's not what I want to see. I would actually like to see I would like to see how we make something like this work. What has to happen to what we have in front of us to get us to the point where we can fund a program in our community that would actually get people into affordable houses. I don't think we're not arguing the question about how Milwaukee feels about affordability. We're sitting here arguing about the mechanics of implementing something. So if the decision is, yeah, we want to look at how we would implement this, then like I can make that decision. I can vote on that decision. But what do you see as the end goal for this discussion today?
Well, we had two other hands up, so I don't know if you want to, I'll let you answer briefly, and then we've got both other counselors have their hands up.
Briefly. I think, yeah. I totally hear, and I hear frustration, and I frankly feel that frustration of the first meeting, I did not expect us to be voting on an ordinance. When I agreed to sponsor this with you, I was a little surprised that that's where the conversation went in that first meeting. That being said, we at the end of that meeting said that.
Yeah, you're the one who advocated
yes,
the ordinance.
that, I would say that was handed to me and said, like, this is what we'd like you to talk about it. Like a week before. I had thought that we'd have a conversation about this, and the nature of the conversation just really changed. After that conversation, we gave direction to come back for this meeting. This meeting could have been a study session. It was scheduled for a regular session. This meeting could have invited people to come. We didn't do that. It seems like the frustration that I guess I'm describing here is, I just wish this meeting could have been different. All of the stuff that we're asking to do on this third meeting about Merle, we could have been doing in this meeting. It seems like we convened this meeting just to say, we should do another meeting. And I'm just struggling with that. And it's not a productive, like, what do I want to see about this? I'm just in my feelings right now because I'm struggling with the fact that we told staff we'd like to come back and talk about this in March and revisit it. Now in our March meeting, we're saying we don't feel like we know what's happening, or we'd like to have you come back and talk about it at a future date. And I'm just struggling with why we're here this second.
If you remember why we came back, it's because you had mentioned that the state in early of 2026 was going to make some changes. So we said, let's come back in March.
Yeah.
So let the state do its thing. Let's revisit in March and see if we want to move forward from there. That's why it happened.
And I do think, I'm going to call on you right next, Counselor Massey. I do think that there are some things we have learned, especially about the efforts you and Austin have made to get the county looking at this, that do change my perception of it. I am more willing to invest some staff time in it at this point because the county's actively working on it than I probably was 2 weeks ago. So anyway, with that, Counselor Massey, sorry we've held you up.
Thank you. Really, Adam has already made my point. That's exactly why we postponed the earlier meeting and said we're going to come back, because we were expecting additional guidance from the state. So maybe that guidance has come. I think it came late. I think that there's still questions about what that guidance really says. And so I agree that we just don't have the information we need to make a good decision for our entire city at this point. And so I want to get that information. I want to move on this. I want clarity, but I don't think that we're at a point where we can we have that clarity to move forward. And, the insinuation that we didn't do our homework. Well, we got these sample ordinances a couple hours ago. Okay, well, yeah, give me a little bit more time and I'll read them more thoroughly, I'm willing to put in the effort, but, I think that the state has been late to provide any more guidance, and I'm not sure that guidance is going to be all that helpful. Maybe it will. I'm not all that optimistic, but there's just more work to be done. I'm with Adam. Adam made my point. I probably could have just said yay verily what he said.
He's put his goose up and taken it down during the time you've been talking. So you're no longer, okay. Council President?
Yeah, Councilor Massey, I don't mean to say that you haven't done your homework. The documents that I provided are public record. Anyone could have gone and looked for them. I guess the challenge that I'm having right now is something that's not that productive. I just wish we had walked away from last meeting with a clear list of what questions we had. I thought we had a clear sense of some of those questions, and I'm frustrated that we don't have the structure for folks to feel like those questions are asked tonight. And I guess the question that I would have for this group is, let's be really clear in the direction we give staff to help us make this decision. What do folks need? What experts do we need in the room to be able to talk about this? What questions do we need answered? If we're delaying this, let's have a real sense of these are the concrete things that we need, because I feel like we didn't walk into this meeting with those concrete things. And I think that what's done is done, but I think we can walk into the next meeting with those concrete things. And Councillor Stavengeorge, to your where do we go forward? I'd say that's a good step.
Okay. Joseph looks like he has something he wants to say. I know you have your.
Yeah, if I could, Mayor, thank you. I do agree, and if this meeting is any show of it, I think this program is it's challenging. I think the more you dig into it, the more it gets the more questions you have. I think that's partly because it's a brand new program. I think it's partly because we don't have if it was in legal terms, we don't have case law. We don't know, we haven't seen any project happen. So I say that not to just be shut it down. I say that because I don't think it's going to get more comfortable in these conversations. I don't know that we're going to be able to figure out all the answers to make all your concerns go away. I think you got to stick to the biggest concerns, I would say, if you do have questions, and figure out how to figure those out. Because again, the more cities I talk to and the more others in general talk to about the Merle, there's always something someone can bring up, and it just feels almost never ending to a degree. So
Well, I
say
guess.
that because I don't know that you'll feel satisfied at the next meeting either.
I do think that's a risk. I do think there's value in having a conversation about potential role of Housing Authority of Clackamas County as the compliance monitor. You brought up some other options, whether it's some sort of a consortium that did it for multiple cities or whatever. I realize as slow as this program is rolling out, that's probably not taking shape fully, but at least getting something on what the thinking is there and where they seem to be going. Hearing from, I think it'd still be good to hear from Commissioner West, although I guess really, in my mind, the questions for the Housing Authority are the bigger ones. But yeah, knowing that the county is really moving forward and wanting to do an IGA on this. Yeah. And I liked Councilor Stavengeorge's question about a fee that attaches to because if we have a period of some of these samples we were given are periods of affordability for 99 years. They're not just the 10 years of the tax abatement. So, the 5% that you get during the period of the tax abatement, that's gone, and you're at year 22 and somebody's selling their house, and it does seem like, I do think it's worth exploring our ability to do that kind of a fee like she suggested. I'm sure there are other questions. Councilor Khosrowshahi.
Yeah, just a couple things. I just want to push back a little on what this meeting was for. I mean, you put it on the agenda with Councilor Savinjord. So normally, when a counselor puts something on, I would think that it's the counselor's responsibility to invite people to come to speak about it. Like usually if I put something on the agenda that I need a second for, I'll be the one to go out and make sure that if I do need a speaker, if I do need somebody here to help clarify, that I invite them. Because that would have been really helpful to have. But that's the other side of the coin. There's so many different, and even with some of the information we got via email, right? Like when Austin sent us the stuff from Portland, that's a completely different, has nothing to do with Merle. That's a grant. He sent us the information of a grant he got from Portland. That's not Merle money. So a grant is completely different. That's not, that has a little bit more teeth, because if you don't complete the project and you're on the grant, that's not a loan agreement between a city and a state. Those are two different things. So I just want to point that out, because that actually made it more confusing for me. Because when I read it, I really wasn't quite sure, like, okay, well, this is a grant, this is a loan. How do the two, maybe I think he was more providing the covenants to see what the covenants look like, but it still didn't address a lot of the issues. And some of the changes that were made didn't address any of the issues we have questions on. And that's the thing. I even asked our representative, like, what happens in the foreclosure? They couldn't answer it. So that's why, I tried to do as much homework as I can. Like I said, I tried to get to a yes, but I'm not going to force myself to a yes and go against my values for it, when I know that there's still so many holes in this thing that still need to be addressed. And that's all we're saying. And I don't like it when we start saying things like, well, why did we do this last time? Why did we do this? I mean, I should ask you, because you did it.
I should clarify. The first meeting was something that Councilor Stafford and I put on the agenda. This is a meeting that we all requested at the end of the last meeting.
But you know why we did.
And it wasn't it wasn't until I saw the packet for this meeting that I realized that there wouldn't necessarily be staff support to answer some of these questions. And I think that there's a larger conversation that we should have about how we can walk into these conversations prepared. And I'm not saying, I don't say that saying that folks aren't prepared. I'm saying that, like, there are a lot of folks that it would have been good to invite. There are a lot of folks ways that we could say we have these clear questions, we'd like them answered. And I don't feel that happening for this meeting, and I feel like that's a missed opportunity. And all I'm saying is, let's make it abundantly clear what we need in the next meeting to say a definitive yes or no, this is something that we want to move forward on. Because I think that type of definitive action is something that we should try and get to. Whether it's a yes or a no, and whether I agree with the outcome or not, I think that it's a benefit to make a decision on this and to do what it takes to get to that decision point.
Okay, I'm not sure where where this leaves us. Councilor Massey.
I'm just going to float an idea, okay? What if two counselors get together and come up with a list of concerns or questions and provide that to the staff so that the staff can address those concerns and questions as best they can in a follow-up study session? Because I'm not sure we're going to get to that the way this is going, I'm not sure that we're going to get that list tonight in this larger forum.
Well, and I mean,
It's an idea. It's only an idea.
That doesn't have to be limited to 2 counselors. We could all send our questions individually so that we're not having a serial meeting, but we could all send staff our questions, right?
I think it's going to be more productive when you got 2 brains bouncing off of each other rather than us sending in an email with, here's my 5 questions.
Okay. Thoughts on that?
I'm not opposed to doing it either way.
I think, I know that more than 2 folks might have questions, and so I think there is value in saying, maybe if you're not one of the 2 who's sitting down to talk about it, still you can send your questions to staff. I think that that's a good productive
Or send it
next
to
step
2.
forward. That's serial meeting.
Well, okay, here's a modification of his idea. 2 people sit down and hammer out questions and get them to staff before the next meeting. And then at the next meeting, list is circulated or, in the packet for the next meeting, that list is circulated. And then the rest of us can say, yes, I have these additional questions, or no, look, that covers my questions. And then we give a month or whatever it needs for staff to respond. I still think, the conversations with the county are going to be key. But anyway. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so, I know. I'm trying to find a way to think positively about making some forward movement. So I don't think, what I'm hearing tonight is not disagreement about like whether we want more affordable or attainable housing in Milwaukee. What I'm hearing is how we want to structure a program that is clear, that is consistent, that is sustainable, and arguably then you have implementation across, 30 to 50 years? That's a lot of city employees that could potentially touch this program. So I agree with you, Joseph, that in order to move something like this forward, and we're not the only jurisdiction that's struggling with this, we have to make sure that it is something that will stand the test of time. And that can be messy. So I realize that there are people who have spent a lot of time sitting in the audience tonight listening to this, and you're probably gonna leave frustrated. I know you already are. But I think that's where there's a difference between the project that's proposed and trying to put something into place that the city would be implementing. So those are 2 different things. And I don't think that our conversation here today is going to be able to move forward those 2 different items. There's not an actionable item that is before us for this. This is literally just discussion. That is how whether it's a regular session or a study session, it's literally just an opportunity for us to come together and talk about this, to share what we have individually learned, to struggle with some of the pressures that we're feeling. Sorry that my she's sensing that there might be some distress that she needs to attend to.
I think she's finding crumbs, but okay.
Anyway, I'm trying to find a way that we can still salvage this as some forward motion. And I think that the information that you've shared, counselors, is helpful. It's information that, while publicly available, I did not review before the meeting. I have not delved into state rulemaking lately. But now that I know where to find it, I will look into that. I think that what would be helpful to do next is, now that it seems like we're in agreement that we want to discuss the, what the feasible implementation of a program, or how to structure a program like this would look like. Then the question is, can we devote some staff time to putting together what the parameters of that program would look like? That staff time would also likely include talking to the county, figuring out where they are with this process and how we would align. And then the next actionable step would be to take those pieces and hash it out in a study session. That doesn't mean that we come to that meeting at the exact same point that we were at the last meeting. That's not, I want to assume the best intentions here, and I want to assume that that's not what you're saying. But I also kind of need you to say that's not what you're saying. There are incremental progressive steps that we're taking in this discussion, and that's good forward movement for the implementation of a program. It's not fast enough for the specific project that brings community members to this meeting tonight. That's the frustration that we can't help everybody's feeling right now. Yeah. But what we can salvage from this conversation is that there is interest in implementing something that could benefit community members in the short term. And we're, unlike other cities, perhaps willing to figure out what that looks like. And I'm going to stop because I almost said a swear word.
I think what you described is no less than one of the things I laid out that we could leave today saying. We want staff to explore this more, prepare some clear next steps. I think the practical thing is like that originating ordinance that we can talk over and consider. That doesn't mean we adopt the ordinance, but like, let's have some tangible thing that we can look at and discuss. What's the compliance plan that we're talking about? What are the concerns that we have? I love Councilor Massey's idea of having people talk, having individuals send in their questions. I think all of that will lead to a productive meeting. I think I have something to propose that maybe could try and marry the fact that we are both discussing about a long-term program that I think we all see challenges in and a potential benefit to. And we have folks here who are seeing 44 units that could come into one of our neighborhoods that are affordable housing. On the forecaster, we have an hour of time on May 5th at a work session. We could potentially talk about this at that hour of time there. And then we could set a hold on a May 19th to potentially consider adopting an ordinance then. That May 19th meeting is set to end at 7:40. And the reason I say this is I did not imagine us adopting an ordinance that would go into effect until June 6th when the program comes into effect. But putting that work session and that hold there at least keeps open the possibility of adopting an originating ordinance in a timeline that potentially could save this project.
So what I'm hearing you propose is that on the 5th, we would determine what goes into an ordinance, and on the 19th, we would vote on an ordinance? Is that what you're saying? Because that's not how ordinances are made. You're missing a step in there. We have to be able to review a draft ordinance. The public has to be able to give input on it. We have to have at least a public reading of the ordinance. I think that timeline that you're proposing is too ambitious.
I guess what I was saying is staff on the 5th can come in with the questions answered that we prepare for them. They can bring in experts who can come and talk about specific elements if they think that's necessary, or if they feel like they can answer that separate, they could just provide those answers. And they could take the originating ordinance language. OHCS provides model language, other ordinances have done that, and they could bring to that meeting, here is an originating ordinance that we could consider. And at that meeting, we can answer questions and have an ordinance that we could consider. Not to adopt in that meeting, but then to bring forward in the next regular session.
So the meeting on the 19th would be the first reading of a draft ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, then we're not voting I just want to be really clear, and Joseph, if I'm not being clear in terms of the timeline, I just don't want people to leave with an expectation that this would be something that we can get over the finish line by the end of May. I don't see that happening.
I don't see that happening either. To me, I think prioritizing, I think if we want to prioritize staff time, it's on answering all these administrative questions about what a program would look like. And then the ordinance is a second step. We need to see if the program would be feasible, if it's something we really can carry. We need to know where the county stands on an IGA. We need to know those kind of things. I think an ordinance is, I mean, if we ask staff to do both, they're not gonna be doing anything but this between now and May 5th. I think I think it's answering the questions of what it would take to administer the program, and are there partners to administer, parts of the program and all of that. And not an ordinance. I agree with Counselor Stavengert. I don't see having an ordinance by the end of May. Other comments?
So what I'm hearing is nobody is strictly opposing Merle. It's still open. It's all, what I'm hearing is that from, thank you, Mayor, for those comments, but it's really trying to figure out the capacity issue and seeing if there's partnership ability. And then there's still a few other questions about exposure, I think, legal exposure and financial exposure. But it does sound like there's a willingness to at least keep going, and then keep having this conversation. Okay, everything I've heard so far is about talking to a few others about how they're potentially addressing the capacity issue. I'm happy to learn some more. If there's other things that you would want to be specific about, right now is the time. So when we come back to that meeting, it'd be helpful. Just keep going. If there's,
Well, I think
I would also say, Mayor, if I may, is that maybe also it's turn around the question too, and not just be like, what would it take for you guys to say yes, but also like, what are your hard no's too? Like, those things are also helpful.
Well, okay. I mean, in my mind, if we don't find someone else to administer the continuing verification of affordability, that would probably be a hard no for me. To me, that's creating a whole new department in our city. That's where to me, that's always been the big stumbling block in my mind.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
It sounds like, other people are, also concerned about the financial liability too, of course.
Okay, then yeah, that's clear.
I would appreciate head nods. So at the next meeting, when I'm bringing, that's true of the mayor? Do other people share that same concern? Because that's a hurdle that needs
I
to
wouldn't
get.
say I'm a hard no on things. I want to learn more so I can get to one or the other. And it's just been it's been difficult because as much as we say, well, we should be doing our research. Yeah, well, nobody can answer these questions. That's the problem. Or at least nobody I've found yet.
Well, and I do think it's, as Joseph said, it's a new program. Everybody's grappling with these same questions. Nobody's found an answer yet. There's some downsides to being at the front of the line.
Yeah, there are. There's 3 ordinances that have been passed in the state since this inception. 3. Coos Bay is one of them, Tillamook County is the other, and the city of Riddle. These aren't big places.
Well, and Representative Gamba told us that he had talked to OHCS and only 7 or 8 cities had even talked to them. I mean, that they considered to be considering it, and we were one of the cities. So knowing where we have been sitting tonight, that they counted us among as one of those cities, tells you there's not a lot of uptake.
It's frustrating, I think, for all of us. I share a lot of frustration in this too, because it's, I think every single person in this room wants to have and see housing, especially income restricted housing, come into our city. And we have this very complicated and clunky thing that the cities are trying to figure out how to make it work for their capacity, their finances, their resources, instead of it just being a simple grant that pass through, that it could be, you could solve this whole issue.
Well, and I guess that does get me to the state did, the legislature, the amount of money spent on housing this cycle was smaller than in some cycles, but there was funding for various housing finance programs. And if there is something that we can do a letter of support for Austin doing an application for a grant, I mean, I assume that we would all be supportive of that. That would be a much cleaner solution all the way around if there were some pot of money that could just be tapped into, or some grant fund that we could support.
I do just want to say that, because I know like we're talking about like, the research and figuring this out and who wants to do what. And there's a little bit of a tug of war. I do appreciate the developers and Austin and everything, but I do really wish that before they banked on this money, they would have talked to us. Because I feel like the project is also kind of putting undue pressure on us to make a decision. And it's almost like it's holding us hostage in a way, because we don't want to say no, because we don't want to see that project go away. That project, I like that project. I think any affordable housing in general is great. I just wish that the project didn't hinge on a program that 98% of the state hasn't even started or took up yet. That put a lot of stress and a lot of pressure to get this done. And I think that's why there's such a race to do it. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be banging heads as much. So I do want to put that out there as well, because you can't promise to have money that's not there yet. So I just, lesson learned. But hopefully it doesn't kill the project. And I've told Pastor Bruns too when we met that whatever happens with Merle, I'll do everything in my power to try to help and find funding, another project, another buyer. I don't care what it is. Like what the church is trying to do is fantastic. What they're trying to provide us is amazing. And it's not something you see every day or ever. So I don't want to let that go by us having an image of a bad partner. So regardless of that, I'm committed and dedicated to doing whatever I can to help if Merle ends up, because there's 5 of us, so I'm not going to be the one that makes the decision on my own. None of us makes a unilateral decision. But I don't want whatever decision to come out of this to be Milwaukie doesn't care, because that's far beyond what the point of all this is. This just may not be the ideal program, and it's why you don't promise money before you have it.
Mayor, thank you. So here's what I feel like the direction is right now. Council is going to send staff any lingering questions. Staff is also during that time, staff will also be reaching out to try to crack the nut about partnership and compliance and monitoring, seeing if there's any partnerships out there. I have some ideas. And then we will have a work session on May 5th to hopefully bring what is learned to that meeting and have another conversation and get more direction from you all. Does that sound right?
I think it's great to target May 5th. I think if depending on where the county is in their conversations, I would want to make it at a time when it was possible to have the county present. So just that would add that caveat.
I have something.
You know where?
Are there any other bits of direction that we can provide that would be helpful for you? Like, do you feel like you have what you need to prepare us for a productive conversation on May 5th, or are there outstanding things?
That's a good question, Council President. I don't know that we'll get there tonight. I think I have enough for them. I think I have enough to be dangerous now and figure out some of the, I'm looking at my partner in crime out there, Mandy Bird, to help get some more information and answer some of these big questions. But then it sounds like there's some also small ones that you'd also like to interest. And then the county kind of coming into the mix is a great opportunity for a lot of partnership and a lot of good things to come out of. I just don't know what the best approach is on that just yet. So that's one thing I'd love to get your, I can go and talk to the housing authority and talk to their administrator and talk to their assessor, but from a commission to council, like love your help there.
But sounds like the council president has already started engaging with the county, with Commissioner West.
Yeah, the chair at that.
The chair, yeah, he got a promotion.
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up and we can talk. Yeah.
Joseph or Mandy, do you know if the ordinances that were passed by the other 3 jurisdictions, are they the same template that came from the state?
Yes.
So they didn't make any modifications to it?
Each of them made some tweaks, but it's a template and you can move and mix.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is if it would be helpful to speak with those jurisdictions and see what the conversation looked like legislatively there, and some of the modifications that they might have made at a local level could help us like illuminate some shared challenges.
Sure. Makes sense.
The piece I can speak to, the substantive differences between them is in the compliance plan and coming with a sense of what, if we were to adopt it, a compliance plan might look like. I think that is the largest substantive policy debate in this. The other differences are kind of like, well, they formatted it slightly different, but there was nothing substantive beyond that.
And what was their conversation about capacity to administer and monitor?
I haven't gone back and watched that public record yet.
Councilor Savage, if I may, I honestly don't think many cities understand what compliance even looks like. I really don't, because they don't have housing people on staff to tell them what a covenant really means,
right.
A deed restriction really means, what a title company does and what they don't do. They don't have that expertise. So part of my conversations with some of these folks is like, do you know what this means? And not all of them necessarily do, but they're hungry for development.
Right.
So that's kind of why they're taking the chance.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a difference between taking a chance or being proactive around an issue that is affecting the residents of your city, and then entering into a legal agreement that future councils and future administrators and future staff will be responsible for implementing and monitoring.
All right. I see no geese. We're good? We're good? Okay. All right. Thank you. So that's it for this topic. You're welcome to stay. Council reports. I would like to talk about the board and committee interviews, and you guys all got a handout about that. Oh, so you got an email from Nicole with the proposed schedule. Since that schedule, it turned out that a couple of the staff liaisons couldn't do the times assigned, and so the proposal is to flip the 2 Wednesdays. So can you put up can you put up the schedule, actually, the email you sent with the schedule?
The most recent schedule or the
Yeah.
first schedule? Okay.
The most recent, the
Okay.
one that we want to make sure it works, these guys, it works for you. So just so you know how this allocation came about, I just sort of took all of you in your lane leader roles and picked the committees that seemed to fit that. And then otherwise, I just tried to make an even distribution. If you guys want to switch and trade, you won't hurt my feelings. But that was, I just did in the interest to get us a schedule because, it's a tight year this year. We have budget. Last year, we didn't have budget. And so we kind of let it drag on and on. And so in the interest of trying to get it more tightly scheduled and done before we get to budget hearings. So there's the proposal for the 2 Wednesdays. The first Wednesday, April 8th, being Counselor Massey and I doing PARB library and audit. April 15th, tax day, Council President Anderson and I doing PSAC, budget, and ESC. And then all the other ones were on Saturday.
Correct. There was a staff liaison for the Arts Committee that is not able to come that Saturday. So we might need to look at finding a different date for that. That is the one currently with the most applicants, but we are going to be narrowing those applications down. That packet's actually going out tonight. Once I'm confirmed on who's on what panel, the two committees that we need to narrow the applications down on, we'll start that process tomorrow.
Yeah, so the arts has 3 vacancies, and that includes a youth position and has 11 applicants. And do you recall offhand if any of them are youth?
For the Arts Committee?
Yeah.
Yes, one is.
One was youth,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, we can hopefully do paper reviews and rankings or ratings and figure out to, narrow that down to 5 or 6 people to interview instead of 11.
Yeah, I guess that's a good.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong column, sorry, 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, 14.
Applicants. So I guess my question to you, Mayor Beatty, is how many would you, for both the arts and the budget, there are no vacancies on the budget committee, but we are looking for an alternate, and on the budget committee, we have 8 applications. So for both, I'm looking for a number on how many you want to narrow it down for the arts committee for interviewing, and then how many you want to narrow it down for the budget committee for interviewing just for an alternate.
Well, I mean, I would say, I would hope we could interview 4 on the budget, 4 to 5 on the budget committee.
Okay.
And, a few more on the arts. I mean, sometimes, it depends on how we do it, right? I mean, usually we've let the interview panel all kind of vote on who they want to interview.
Yeah,
who they think warrants an interview.
The way.
And so where that voting breaks may be different,
Yeah, I was looking at in the emails that I have ready to go out, the way we did it last year was each panel member picked, depending on how many we want, 4 to 5 or 5 to 6 applicants. And then if any of the applicants appeared on 2 or more panel members, then those went to an interview list.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, how many do we want to let each panel member select up to for possibly interviewing?
4.
Okay. For both or just for 4 for
Yeah.
budget and then?
Because if there's 4 people ranking them and they have to make 2 lists, so yeah.
Okay.
4 sounds right to me.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is everybody able to do those times?
These were the Wednesdays that we were just looking at.
Well, if you want to trade with somebody for a Wednesday,
No, I got nothing better to do on Saturday. It's just the principle of it.
And yours would be in the afternoon, evening, Counselor Kasrabati.
Mm.
Mayor Robert here. I'm okay with the switch from 15 to 8.
Okay, great.
I've got a work meeting from 5:30 to 6:30 on the 15th. If we only advance 4 people from budget committee, we interview a total of 10 people. And so the question is, could we do 10 people in 2.5 hours and just start
It's
an hour
3
later?
people an hour.
3 people an hour, so no, not quite. Oh, no. No, not quite.
Yeah,
Okay.
you need.
I'll try and
3.
figure out a way to get out of this. Yeah, it's the first caucus meeting post
Oh,
session, so it'll be an
post-session.
interesting conversation. But I'll move up.
Okay. I mean, if one of you really doesn't want to do Saturday, we could look at switching for April 5th, switching from Wednesday night for half of Saturday.
want to see how he does that tap dance.
Make them sweat. I'll do it. It'll be okay.
Okay, great.
We change it. We still have time to change it, right? Or is this it?
Well-
Something comes up in a week and I'm like, hey, bro.
I mean, if you can get somebody to swap with you, you can
Yeah.
change it. Yeah. Well, but just keep in mind, there are staff liaisons who are also banking on this schedule. So we really do need to pin it down in the next few days. Okay,
If someone desperately needs someone to cover for them, I'm sure out of the 4 of us, someone could.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario.
yeah, we did some of that last year. We ended up having to pull somebody in at the last minute, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much.
all right, other council reports? Counselor Savinger?
Just a quick update. I had the opportunity to attend the Travel Portland Tourism Conference.
Mhm.
It was great.
Oh, yeah.
As we are having the conversations about economic development and a specific tourism strategy for the city, getting people to kind of build more awareness of Milwaukie as a destination and that they should make it Milwaukie.
Oh.
I'm shopping that around. I'll go into more detail when we talk about ECDEV next time, in the goal updates, but the workshops were really informative. I took a lot of notes and took a lot of photos, and they had mapped out, I'll try and get slides for this. They had mapped out what visitor profiles looked like for folks, who are going different places in Oregon, who are from Oregon versus outside of Oregon. And then it gave some insight around, the demographic profile or the visitor profile that Travel Portland is interested in bringing into the state. They also had, of course, all of their teams there. So it was really helpful to be able to connect with folks to talk about marketing the city and building out programs and supports and things like that. So I'm excited to brainstorm some of those things with 3 of our business coalition partners, not individuals, but coalitions. DAM, the Business of Milwaukie, and the Chamber. And anyway, there were some smaller strategies that I'd love to be able to speak with folks about. I can do that, at a large scale in our next conversation about ECDEV. But I would like to bring together some strategies or some proposed strategies around tourism for us to think about.
Okay, awesome. And the county gives away some tourism money every year, so
Yeah.
we maybe should be trying to tap into that.
That's possible.
Yep. Others? Okay, I do have a list, but I want to let other people go first if you've got.
I had a West meeting, but I don't have the right notebook that has my notes. We really went over the capital improvement projects and some of the budget stuff, but there was some stuff in there that I wanted to point out. I have the wrong notebook.
Okay.
Are we meeting next week?
No, we don't meet again till, this is our last meeting for March. We meet again in April.
You guys can hear that report in April.
Okay. You
No,
look
I'm
like you
looking
have a
through
good-
my notes, but nothing right now.
Okay. Couple of quick things, actually sort of related to what Counselor Stavanger talked about. Tourism tomorrow, there is an all-day symposium called Reimagine the River, and talking about, from Portland to the falls and the river as a whole. And I'm going to be with a few other mayors on a little lunchtime panel. But I'm looking forward to going for the rest of the day and hearing what comes. Apparently there'll be people from presentations from Seattle and Vancouver about their efforts on, their waterfronts and, sort of taking the long view of how to reimagine your river. I wanted to mention that the principal is coming from, or the superintendent, sorry, from the school district is coming on April 7th at our next, I guess that is our next meeting. I know a lot of us have been doing various things in terms of talking to community members about response to ICE. So I just wanted to highlight the superintendent's presence being here as maybe an opportunity to talk about some of that. I think, I won't go further. I think you've all heard from Brent that the library, so Counselor Kosher-Body and I did a meeting with some folks from the county health and human services about trainings they wanted to do, and they reached out to us today. You'd heard from Brent that they've scheduled a naloxone training at the library on May 26th, and a QPR, which is a kind of a suicide intervention or prevention training, on June 15th. They asked today if we would be willing to allow them to put our city logo on their promotional flyers for those events. Does anybody have any concerns about that? Nope.
Not at all.
Okay, so we'll tell them that's okay. And then they also asked about what they call signs of hope, which I think are these black and white signs you've probably seen in some neighborhoods that say, you are not alone, or, sort of affirmational messages. They offered to give us some of those signs, either to place in downtown or place in our buildings in the month of May for Mental Health Awareness Month. I just wanted to put that out there and ask what people thought of that. Do we want to take them up on that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, okay. Okay. I will tell them that we are game for that as well, okay? Then I wanted to mention that I got a little pushback from a couple people around the fact that the new tap room at the 1847 does not have an elevator, and so is not accessible above the ground floor. And I talked to Joseph, and he got information from the building official, and it is state building code that they were not required to build an elevator. It's a done deal now. There's sort of no changing it for that building, but I do kind of feel like maybe we want to have a conversation at some point about whether we want to have a more ADA forward view of our buildings than the state building code apparently is. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I have a couple of thoughts there. debate. No, I'm just joking. I think that that's probably not reserved to just the one instance. I mean, there are so many businesses on Main Street that like people are having a hard time getting into. Ours is one of them. And I don't even know how to begin retrofitting that or who to talk to. I think it might be interesting to like maybe pull some minds together and see what we could do. If there are some strategies that we could offer as a jurisdiction, because mobility is such a huge concern. And as we have more and more community members that are aging, yeah, I don't know. I would be interested in hearing more. I don't know what the end product would be, but I just want to just echo the concern that there are some barriers on Main Street.
Yeah.
Like further down too.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I guess we all know the older buildings. I mean, we don't have, we don't have too much control over older buildings, although we could try to find tools to help older buildings adjust. But in terms of brand new construction, I guess it kind of concerned me that they didn't have to put in an elevator, to be honest. But yeah, I'm all up for talking about, and there may be some, there may be some tools and some potential partners on the ADA accessibility for some of those, older storefronts. So yeah, let's talk about that. Transportation, I just want to highlight, and it kind of came up, it's kind of a subliminal thing in the Merle, actually, but it's coming up more emphatically in what I'm hearing about transportation discussions in Salem, which is that the 50-30-20 split of splitting revenue with counties and cities is at risk next term. And generally, the state, there's a lot of, I'll just lay a marker, as we say. There's a lot of concern about from mayors that the state is always pushing the onus onto the cities to bear the cost of, Merle, you waive your taxes. Transportation, if we're not going to do a 50-30-20 split, we'll let you charge a gas tax, there sort of seems to be a growing feeling that the legislature is willing to push the burden onto the cities too much. And I'll leave it at that because we don't have a session until next year. But I just wanted to flag that as something to watch for as legislative things develop over the fall leading into the next session. And then finally, the district advisory committee, the NCPRD. I sent you guys this afternoon some questions about their budget or some answers to some questions that I asked, and a few other DAC members asked about their budget. They have a $20 million reserve plus contingency fund, which is almost twice what their annual operating budget is. It struck me as pretty excessive, but that you can read their answer for why they have such a large contingency fund. The other thing that was discussed at the last meeting was their partnership with the Trust for Public Lands. I think I've mentioned this before. They've signed an agreement with them. They seem to be full steam ahead on on doing surveying this spring and presenting the county commissioners, the board of the NCPRD, with some kind of a tax measure to put on the November ballot. So they were, they've always talked interchangeably about the idea of reforming the district or the idea of a levy. I don't see that reforming the district is something they can pull together by the November ballot, so I have to kind of think they're gonna go for a 5-year levy. But anyway, those conversations are ongoing. There should be more information in the next month or so, especially if they're actually out there doing surveying, surveying, public opinion research. So we will see what comes of that. There was a letter read into the record at the end of the meeting by one of the from one of the DAC members who was not able to be present, and so he had someone read his letter into the record. He was quoting from the council president's email. I think he thought it was a Facebook post, but anyway, about, whether we're leaving the district or not leaving the district, et cetera. I understand the council president has reached out to him and will be meeting with him when he returns from travel. Anyway, it was a bit of a muddled letter, but wasn't sure to me whether he wanted Milwaukie to stay in the district or not, but anyway, it was a very odd ending to the meeting. I guess that's all about the DAC and NCPRD. Okay, I think that's all of my council reports. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None heard. We are adjourned.